about independent relationships. Everybody wants to make me accountable. Can they? Listen, I'm trying to be accountable. Make everybody else accountable.
I think everybody else is being accountable.
I've seen this.
No, I think everybody else is being accountable.
I've been watching this for years.
I think everybody else is being accountable. They were accountable when they said, you know what, I can't do this anymore and I have to leave.
You ever watch a family on TV that just looks so perfect on the surface? Smiling faces, big happy groups, everyone along, and then you glimpse something else. A look, a pause, a quiet tension that is like a flaw in the perfect surface. That's what Sister Wives is all about. You get to see the glamour, the good family stuff, and the smiling wives. But underneath it's all of this complex network of control, pain, and emotional struggle that doesn't get nearly as much focus. If you didn't know, Sister Wives features Kody Brown and his 4 wives, Meri, Janelle, Christine, and Robyn, and their vast blended family dealing with polygamy in today's world. The show gives you this pleasant picture of peace and love, but anybody who's paying attention sees the cracks, the jealousy, the favoritism, the power struggle, the weight of old-fashioned gender roles bearing down on these women and their children. It is not television drama, it is real life, complicated and messy and sometimes downright heartbreaking. Hi everyone, friends. I'm Mia from Next Chapter on TLC. If you enjoy discovering the real story about the reality shows that you love, then make sure to subscribe and give your comments down below. Tell me what you're thinking of the Browns and how they interact. Today we are peeling back that glaze on the surface that Sister Wives presents to us and being honest about what really goes on behind the scenes. I'll be talking about the way emotional manipulation, favoritism, and old-fashioned roles aren't just backstory, they're ruling this family's daily reality, entrapping these women and children in cycles of dependence and pain. So fasten your seatbelts because what seems picture-perfect on TV, it's actually anything but. You know, when you first start watching Sister Wives, it does seem to be this giant blended family that just works. The show creates a picture of harmony and collaboration, everyone assisting one another, having moments, juggling holidays and kids, and somehow getting this big family to work as a unit. On the surface, it's kinda a dream team, tight-knit group of people that get along. Look beneath the surface and the image starts to blur and the cracks are impossible to ignore. Take Meri, for example. Right from the first seasons, it's clear that she always feels like the odd one out. When the show tries to make her this steady presence, she's actually smothered in loneliness. There are moments when she's visibly hurt, sitting alone, or trying not to be ignored by Kody and the rest. One particular episode comes to mind where Meri is pining not to be invited to all sorts of family gatherings or being left behind when the family moves into new homes. It is poignant because the cameras pick up on this polite surface conversation, but the lines in between tell most of loneliness. And then there's Christine, whose existence is a constant battle to hold on to respect and ground-level standing. She's very vocal, but often cold-shouldered or subtly snubbed. There are times when she rebukes Kody for being biased, especially if he seems to make crucial decisions without her input or favors Robyn in family planning. Christine's rage builds up over the years, and you can see just how deeply it wears her out, not just because of Kody, but because she's constantly fighting to maintain her place in a system that doesn't want to give it up to her. Janelle, the most married wife, is not exempt from it. She struggles with that balance of being a mother, being a wife, and being the one that is supposed to keep this messy family intact. Sometimes her anger spills over in a low-key manner. A tense word spoken here, an elevated eyebrow there. She's trying so frantically hard to keep things running smoothly, but is clearly weighed down by emotional exhaustion. The favoritism and altering dynamics of the household leave her feeling invisible in her own home. And then there's Robyn, the youngest wife, whose own dynamic is complicated. Throughout the early stages, it's obvious that she's under stress to keep peace, but also to become deserving. She's trying to walk that tightrope of wife, mother, peacemaker. And yet the show insinuates how that isolates her too. She's often torn between defending Kody's decision and providing for herself and desires. There's this muted tension as though she's walking on a thin rope where a single slip would cost her favor or respect. Kody himself is also a major contributor to all of these. The way he dictates from where the family lives to whom gets what attention affects everyone deeply. He decides without always fully consulting all his wives, and this plants seeds of bitterness. From moving the whole family state to state or planning big family events, Kody's is the loudest voice, the final word. The wife's voice is occasionally an afterthought, and this imbalance feeds the emotional space and jealousy. What's so difficult to comprehend is how favoritism plays out differently with each of the women, but ultimately leads to division and pain. Meri being held off to the side, Christine fighting for fair treatment, Janelle burning out, and Robyn walking the tightrope. All stem from one general problem: the uneven way Kody treats all the wives and what role he wishes them to occupy. It's as if each of the wives is trapped in a variation of the same cycle, seeking love and respect, but finding themselves in patterns of isolation or competition. In all honesty, seeing it all go down this way is burdensome. It's one thing to experience the smiles and the family vacations, but to know what's bubbling beneath: control, favoritism, emotional isolation. It resonates differently. You start to realize that it's not all a reality TV soap opera. It's real people grappling with real agony that the cameras only infrequently sees. And that got me caught up because it's hard not to empathize with these women trapped in a system where their own voices do regularly get muffled. It's painful and raw, and that tension lingers well after the episode is over. It's hard to talk about sister wives without rubbing up against the webs of feelings that hold these women in place. The way that Kody's actions play out isn't a matter of decision or of logistics. It's control, and it's emotional. You watch the series and realize that this control isn't always loud or horrific. Other times it's more subtle, such as a tight grip holding both wives in place and grasping at the family system while clearly being wounded by it. Meri's background actually does this very well. Repeatedly, she's been observed struggling to understand not just Kody but the family as well. Even though she is clearly in pain, when she speaks of loneliness or being ignored, she continues to return, expecting something to change. It's like stuck in a pattern where love and suffering are so entwined that it becomes virtually impossible to back away. Her repeated efforts, with the emotional cost of making it work, shriek of an acute need to be seen and belong. But that need also traps her, because to remain is to endure more disappointment and emotional distance. Christine's struggle is unique, but no less sorrowful. She longs so much to be heard, to have her voice matter with the family decisions and Kody's gaze. But with all her intensity and loudness, she is still tied to this structure, the family and faith that have defined so much of her life. She relies on the family setup, even when it's clear that it's not serving her. Her insistence on being seen and heard sometimes appears to be a battle against something greater than herself, and that wears her down. It's painful to watch someone who is so clearly strong and powerful continue to revert to a family setup that makes her feel manipulated and dismissed. And then there is Janelle, who is the peacekeeper even at her own expense emotionally. She's the wife who will attempt to smooth it over so that the household is peaceful and the children are safe. But that does not come for free. That costs her biting her own hurt, occasionally choosing to turn a blind eye to disparity of power or prejudice just to keep the household operating. You can see it in her eyes, the heaviness of that burden. And it's a reminder that control of emotions does not necessarily manifest in tough words and actions, but in an unspoken hope that she prioritized others' needs to hers. One of the more painful parts of this dynamic is the manner in which the family appears to keep the wives emotionally in check. There are moments on the show when Kody's behavior teeters toward emotional manipulation, withdrawing love or attention when a wife resists him, using guilt as a tool of behavior control, or making decisions that leave some wives feeling ignored or unappreciated. It's as if there is this system that just exists, where love and acceptance are not unconditional, but rather conditional, and the wives learn how to play it quickly if they don't want to cause trouble or get near Kody. This manipulation of emotions is a serious imbalance of power. Kody holds the keys to family decisions, love, and the future, leaving the wives in a powerless position. Their choices are limited, and it is clear that straying outside the parameters of roles he delineates can have consequences, from emotional disengagement to building tension. The fact that they are mothers adds to that. Their duty and love for their children tie them even tighter to the family, rendering it virtually impossible to simply walk away or end the cycle without endangering the well-being of their children. This motherhood position pins them down and ensnares them, complicating their love, duty, and control. Watching all this happen makes me extremely sad. It's devastating to see women trapped in this tangled web of emotions where love and duty collide with control and suffering. They're not television characters, they're real people fighting to be free and happy in a family system that's all about love, but might as well be a prison. The conflict between hanging on and letting go is raw and real, and makes you hope for better things for all of them. It's a tough truth to swallow, but it's the kind of truth that Sister Wives doesn't always present on the surface. I mean, one of the toughest things to see in Sister Wives is how entrenched traditional roles are in the family and how much stress that creates for the wives. This isn't just about family dynamics, it's about an antiquated patriarchal system that seeks out women to place themselves last, keep the household running, raise the kids, and get the family moving. But their own voices and needs are generally put on hold. And trust me, the pressure is not delicate, it's built into so many scenarios that it can get you riled and even a little resentful. The show provides a glimpse of the wives juggling an enormous list of things: emotional labor, domestic work, child rearing, as if it's just part of the bargain. But what wears them down is hearing them just flat out admit they have trouble and get exasperated with this. Meri, Janelle, Robyn have all at various points sort of suggested they feel trapped or suffocated in their roles. You see it in Christine especially. She attempts to return and create some space for herself, as well as her views. But time and again, Kody's liking for doing things the old way caps that independence. Christine's efforts to free herself and assert herself are in conflict with the family's expectations, and her journey becomes one of the most tense and emotionally charged on television. This really highlights the way the family hierarchy is built around Kody's patriarch. He is the decision maker, the one who dictates where the family goes, and the wives are meant to advise and follow. This is evident in shows where decisions about where they are to live or how the family is to be operated are left mostly in Kody's hands, with the input from the wives watered down or discounted. And that's not easy to observe, especially when these women are clearly intelligent, capable, and deserving of respect and equality. This outmoded dynamic doesn't only apply to the wives, it translates into the way the children are brought up. The kids see these traditional roles played out every day as they grow up, and it influences their ideas about gender, power, and relationships. It's no wonder that several of the Brown children have talked about how hard it is to balance these expectations, caught between their parents' values and the outside world beyond. This conflict creates tension and confusion, illustrating that these archaic roles don't only define the wives but the future of the family as well. Some of the most compelling episodes expose this struggle directly. Those moments of those times when Christine is adamant about her space, when Janelle refuses to be made invisible, or when Robyn talks of her own struggles with being a part of this system, all recognize the real emotional cost of hanging on to these traditions. It pains to witness them struggling to assert more control and equality, and yet be held captive by love and loyalty to a family framework that inhibits them. In fact, watching this happen is like watching another generation, one that should have already passed by. For the younger wives, especially like Robyn, who had been brought up with more modern thinking, this battle is even more significant. They want partnership, respect, and say in the direction of their lives. But the pushback of the family for traditional roles can stifle those dreams in a hurry. It is sad because you know the possibility for change and growth, but the old rules just keep pulling them in. In the end, these old gender rules really cause harm. They keep women in jobs that limit their freedom and emotional well-being, and they create cycles of frustration, resentment, and sometimes silence. It's an awful thing to witness, knowing these women are capable of better than this, but feeling how deeply entrenched these habits are. It's not a one-family thing, it's a reflection of wider society's ills with gender, control, and power that continue to affect so many women today. That's why the Sister Wives narrative is so significant, because it's not simply a reality program, it's a reflection of all those endless wars behind closed doors. It's insane how Sister Wives keeps introducing us to this glittery picture-perfect family life on TV. Smiling faces, big families, and that glossy unity which people expect. But what lies under the flashy exterior is so much more. The truth is replete with control and favoritism, emotional hurt, and traditional gender roles that confine everyone, particularly wives, to inescapable, achy cycles. It's being torn between being committed to their family and feeling ensnared within the barriers and guidelines which never substantially change. We've seen Kody's control of decisions, his clear bias towards his wives, and the emotional manipulation all work together to force the women to struggle for their own voice and freedom. And the emotional pain that comes from being pushed to the side or tied into roles that are antiquated isn't just hard to watch, it's painful. The wives are not just TV characters, they are real women facing complex, often unfair situations. And that's what the show doesn't always entirely show us. So as a viewer, I think it's necessary to see more than the ideally edited story. Don't be so caught up in just the ideal picture of family. Attempt to catch the glimpse of the actual lives behind the cameras, the jealousy moments, frustration, aloneness, and strength moments that don't necessarily make the highlight reel, but paint the real story. I'd love to hear what you all have to say. Do you think the wives are treated with respect and fairness that they deserve? Was there ever a moment on the show that broke your heart or made you see the family in a different way? Leave your comments, because this conversation matters. Thanks so much for tuning in with me today on TLC's Next Chapter. If you like real talk about your favorite reality TV shows, be sure to subscribe and keep the conversation going. Until next time, be kind to yourselves and keep looking for the truth behind the scenes.